Hey guys, welcome to the Breeders' Cup preview show presented by America's Best Racing. Previewing this fall's biggest events, I am Joy Taylor. Very excited to be back with Jonathon Kinchen, aka UT Big Hair, a great follow on Twitter, by the way. How are you, Jonathon? So good to see you again.
I'm good. It's Breeders' Cup. I get my Joy fix about every 4 to 5 months. It seems like. Yeah. So it's good to be back, and it's exciting. We're in Lexington now, and this event has a little bit of a different buzz than some of the Breeders' Cups I've been to before, because I think we all have a chance to see something pretty special.
Yes, and we are going to talk about that very special thing coming up very soon. So if you are a new gambler, if you're new to horse racing, if you're an expert, wherever level you are, we're going to give you a lot of tips today. Jonathon is an expert. He bets on horse racing all the time and has a lot of great insider information. So we're going to get all of that for you. Of course, we are previewing the Breeders' Cup. It is in Keeneland Race Course this weekend in Lexington, Kentucky, where Jonathon is, as he just mentioned. So it's the Breeders' Cup World Championship. You can also check out the cheat sheet on americasbestracing.net. I will tweet out the link. It has a lot of great information about this weekend's races and how to gamble, and a lot of information on the horses. You can get all of your insider info, expert predictions, and last minute updates there. So I will tweet out the link to that as well. And we'll get into a lot of it today on the preview show as well. So it's the biggest event in global horse racing. And it's been compared to, so if it's like the college football championship is the Triple Crown, this is like the Super Bowl. Is that a good comparison?
That's really good. I've actually never heard that comparison before, but it's pretty accurate. I mean, obviously Kentucky Derby is special. It's only for 3-year-old horses, so there's no we'll get them next year. So it has that special feel about the Kentucky Derby, and it's also that event that's a bucket list item for so many people. So it's kind of got that big draw. But the Breeders' Cup is 14 championship races, different distances, different age groups, different surfaces, and you crown a champion in all of these different divisions. So the best of the best show up here. The Derby winner will run here. The Derby second place horse running here. Travers horse running here. Preakness type horses run here. It's kind of a culmination of all of the greats.
So a big time showcase for horse racing from all around the world. And you teased a little bit at the beginning of the show. Obviously, everyone wants to know about the favorite to start the show. And I will get you lots of underdogs and long shots and all of that coming up, and how to gamble as well. But let's start with Flightline. And here's a little bit on this horse.
Slipping up pretty now. On the roll. Here comes the afterburner.
And certainly up there with one of the greats of all time.
I think when you look at any great athlete, they just make it look so easy.
Airborne. Here it's coming up.
I think anytime you see pictures of him, you just think, this guy is a beast.
Flightline sailing away. Flightline all by himself at the top of the stretch with a 5-length lead.
And take a good look at this, because you're not going to see this too often, maybe never again. Flightline, 20 lengths clear.
Oh, what a racehorse! Flightline, he's flawless, and he's freakishly fast.
Ball gauge is 6 Delta Bravo, runway 7, clear to land.
Okay, very exciting horse, exciting name. Now tell us why all this matters, Jonathon. Hype us up more for Flightline.
Yeah, I'm going to try to get carried away here, but look, I'm 40 years old. I've been watching racing since I was 16 years old with my father, and I'm fairly certain, and I say fairly certain, this is the best horse I've ever seen in my lifetime. And I've seen Triple Crown winners. I've seen tons of Breeders' Cup Classic winners. I've seen it all. And I really, truly believe this is the best horse I've ever seen. And I can't wait to watch him run on Saturday. Whether you're betting or you're not, whatever it might be, I just encourage you to tune in to see greatness. We all love it. We love watching Game 7s and watching players make shots and Tom Brady throw touchdowns and the Women's World Cup. We love watching greatness, and I can assure you that you'll see greatness on Saturday afternoon. This horse is special. He ran a speed figure of a 126, and we've talked about this before in these shows, that like a quarterback rating, the higher the better. 126 is blistering fast. American Pharoah was in like the 104s, 105s, 106s. This horse is running 126, and I think he'll run faster than that on Saturday. He's a special horse, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, so let's skip ahead to this part of the program then, because obviously it feels nice when the favorite wins, but because of the odds, because it's there's so much hype around it, you might not make a lot of money. So if you were to bet on Flightline, how would you structure it?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of different opportunities here. I actually don't think he'll be as short as he probably should be. As short of a price. I think he probably deserves to be 1 to 9-ish. I'm not sure that he's going to be that short. I think he might be 2 to 5, 1 to 2 at best. If he's 1 to 2, I'm going to have to take a trip to the bank on the way over there. I think he's going to be a short price, but there is ways to make money. You can bet exactas where you put him in first place and then you pick the second horse to run. And I think Epicenter or Hot Rod Charlie, a couple of horses you might want to use, Taba, a couple of horses you might want to use underneath or in second place. You can bet a trifecta. The Breeders' Cup Pick 6 is one of my favorite wagers of the entire year. It's all grade 1 races. It's all championship races. And you can just end with Flightline. You can use a ton of other horses in other spots, and you're still just alive to one horse in Flightline. So it's a kind of a de facto win bet on him. So there's a lot of opportunities. There's 13 other, I'll tell you this, there's 13 other races you can make money on. Just shut up and watch this greatness happen. You don't have to complain about the price. Just enjoy it. Who cares? Bet $10. I'll give you $3 back. It's not a big deal.
That's great. That's great advice. Sometimes you just got to enjoy it. Enjoy watching greatness. By the way, coverage starts on USA Network on Friday, starting at 2 Eastern, continues on Saturday at 1, and NBC and Peacock pick up coverage starting at 3:30. And the featured race is the Breeders' Cup Classic. So let's start on Friday then. We have the Breeders' Cup Friday races, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile fillies, sort of like a futures game for the female horses. So let's start there. Tell us a little bit about this race.
Well, yeah, so the juvenile fillies and the juvenile colts we'll talk about a little bit too are both exciting races because they're 2-year-old horses. And I mentioned earlier in the show that the Kentucky Derby and the Kentucky Oaks, which we've talked about, are for 3-year-old horses. So this is kind of that excitement moment. The horses that win these races are likely the early favorites for those next races that we get very excited about the next time that I'll probably be talking to Joy. In the fillies race, there's a horse that's pretty interesting, a fun horse by the name of Chocolate Gelato. She is owned by Mike Rapoli. If you guys ever watch Shark Tank or you just pay attention in general to energy drinks or sports drinks, Body Armor, Vitamin Water, Pirate's Booty. If you had any kids, Mike Rapoli was involved in all of those companies. He owns Chocolate Gelato. Some personality this guy has. And she's probably going to be the favorite in here. And she's pretty special as well. She's no Flightline. But I do think that it's exciting to watch these 2-year-old fillies. As far as the boys race is concerned, the juvenile race, there is a horse in here that I absolutely love. A horse that will be the favorite come Saturday morning for the Kentucky Derby after he wins on Friday is Cave Rock. He'll probably be 3 to 5, not a great betting opportunity, but a little bit of mini greatness. No Flightline type stuff, but mini greatness with this undefeated horse who I think will win the juvenile race. So the Future Stars Fridays is a lot of fun because you can help you get excited about finding the next Flightline if that happens to ever happen.
So Chocolate Gelato and Cave Rock are the ones that you recommend for Friday. Okay, let's get to the Saturday races. The Breeders' Cup Sprint, some of the fastest horses in the world, racing at 3/4 of a mile. And the race will be over in under 70 seconds. Who do you like here? Who should we be paying attention to here?
Well, there's a really cool horse and a horse that I think is the most likely winner, and that's Jackie's Warrior. Jackie's Warrior won a grade 1 race, kind of the highest level of our races. Won a grade 1 race at 2. He won a grade 1 race at 3 and at 4. But oddly enough, he's never won a Breeders' Cup race, that's kind of sneaky for a horse who's done so well. He's the most likely winner here, but he didn't run all that great last time. In his last start, he was beat. And I actually think that he could be a little bit vulnerable here. And a horse that I think that is interesting is the 6 Elite Power. and I'm not encouraging you to stop at the bank like I might for Flightline to bet against Jackie's Warrior, but I do think that there is a little bit of interest in a horse like Elite Power. If Jackie's Warrior gets a little bit tired, or maybe he's a little long in the tooth, it is his last start of his career, I do think a horse like Elite Power could pick him up. But like I said, I wouldn't be cutting in line to bet against Jackie's Warrior, but I do think that he could be a little bit vulnerable.
So Jackie's Warrior was one of our questions from our comment section from L. Diaz. Do you think Jackie's Warrior will bounce back? So one more time, the horse that you think could make him vulnerable?
I think Elite Power is interesting.
Elite
and then
Power.
For all the ladies out there, which I'm sure are tuning in here, is Kamari, a female horse facing the boys. They liked this distance for her instead of running against her own sex. They decided to run her 6 furlongs against the boys. I think she's interesting as well. So if you want to have a little bit of woman power, you can root for Kamari as well. She's a very, very live horse in the spot.
How about the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprints? The same race, but this one's on grass.
Yeah, well, it's a really fun Breeders' Cup because there's so many special type of horses running, right? We talked about Cave Rock a little bit. We talked about Jackie's Warrior and what he's accomplished. We obviously talked about Flightline. Well, Golden Pal arguably could be the greatest turf sprinter. Okay, they're running on the grass. We call it turf and dirt. Running on the grass, sprinter, short distances. He might be the greatest turf sprinter this country's ever seen. This will be likely his last race as well. And he's running in here. So it's always fun to watch Golden Pal run. He's going to go to the front, and he's going to go as fast as he possibly can and hope that they don't catch him. And they don't often catch him. Another girl power experience here. There's a European horse, like you mentioned, Joy, at the top. This is a world event where we see horses that come from overseas as well. There's a filly in here named Highfield Princess, who's also extremely nice. And I think if Golden Pal gets beat, he's going to get beat by the lady. It's going to be a ton of fun to watch these horses. This is even faster than the sprint you were talking about earlier with Jackie's Warrior.
How about the Breeders' Cup Turf, the best grass horses in the world?
So I've given some love to the ladies, and now I'm going to take that love away. There's a filly in here, a mare named Warlike Goddess, and she is a mare running against a bunch of boys. She's a female horse running against the boys, and she's been outstanding throughout her career. She's dominated the ladies she's faced, and even in her last start, she beat the North American boys in a Grade 1 race. But she now has to deal with the European boys that are coming over, and I just don't think she's good enough to beat those horses. They're going to bet her. She's going to be a sentimental story. They're going to like her a little bit. I think you'll have some opportunities to beat her, and a horse that I'm going to try to beat her with is the 11 Misharif, a horse that's won $15 million in his career. He won a really big race in Saudi Arabia that kind of helps pad the stats, but I do think he's interesting. This is his last race, and they're going to bet the filly, and she's awesome. I love her, but I just don't love her on Saturday against the horses that she's going to face. So no reason to try to cancel me. I picked a couple of fillies already. I just don't like this one.
No. You always spread the love. What's your tattoo?
Yeah, I have 2 female races horses on my arm. Zenyatta, yeah, of course.
Yeah. If you've watched these with me and Jonathan before, we talk about this all the time. If you just jumped in with us, by the way, you're watching the Breeders' Cup preview show with America's Best Racing. I'll be tweeting out the America's Best Racing Breeders' Cup cheat sheet as well after our live, so you can get a lot of the information that we're talking about here, and this will stay up as well so you can rewatch if you've missed anything that Jonathan's covered. And we're getting to the Cup Classic, but before we do, the Breeders' Cup Distaff.
The Distaff, another really fun race. I think one of the most wide open races that we'll see. Mike Rapoli, who I mentioned earlier, that owned Chocolate Gelato, also owns a filly in here named Nest. Nest ran in the Belmont Stakes. I don't know if you remember. She was a filly taking on the boys. She ran second that day to her stablemate that Mike Rapoli owned in Mo Donegal, which is kind of funny. If Mo Donegal wouldn't have been in there, Nest would have won, which would have been special to have a filly win the Belmont. I think Mike Rapoli is happy that someone won the race. He ran 1-2. She's very talented. She's trained by Todd Pletcher, a Hall of Famer. But there's another horse in there named Malathot, who's also trained by Todd Pletcher, that is extremely dangerous. I woke up 3 weeks ago thinking that one of those 2 horses had to win this race because they're just that good. But I kind of had a little bit of a change of heart. I think the 4 Clairiere can also win. She has been racing against Malathot quite a bit. In her last race, she was a little bit fractious in the gate. And when they before the gate opened, she like kind of bumped her head and cut her tongue. And so she just wasn't happy in the race. And She didn't run particularly well, but if I cut my tongue before I went on a jog, it probably wouldn't go well either.
Right.
She's 100% healthy now. I think she's going to run much better in here. And there's another one named Search Results, trained by Chad Brown, who I think is interesting as well. She ran third 3 races ago, excuse me. And I think that her third place race was probably better than anything anyone else has run all year. She just didn't win. She went really fast early and just got a little tired late.
All right, now the Breeders' Cup Classic all-around championship race featuring what you've said is the best horse you've ever seen in your life in Flightline, generational talent. If you were to bet this race, we'll get into, obviously, if you're a new bettor, you've got lots of information here, lots of great stuff from Jonathon. But let's talk a little bit about how to gamble if you're new to this. You mentioned exactas and trifectas earlier. Let's just revisit that and what you recommend for this race.
Yeah, look, I'm going to try to get alive in pick 5s and pick 6. Very similar to a parlay in sports. You're just trying to run winners together of consecutive races. The difference is between this and a parlay is that you can actually pick more than one horse in a race, and it's just simple math at that point. If you use 4 horses in the first leg and you use 4 horses in the second leg, you're 4 times 4, and you just keep doing that math to figure out how much it's going to cost you. I think pick 5s and pick 6s alive to Flightline in the last leg, just using him, are great opportunities to have some good action that you can tune in and watch on NBC, but also that you can, get alive to this big horse at this big moment. The other thing I think is the exacta. I think it's going to be a fun pool to play in. I'm going to probably try to get Flightline with either Taba, Epicenter, or Hot Rod Charlie in second. And the reason that's significant is there's a horse in here by the name of Life is Good, who is extremely, extremely talented. Probably the second best horse in the race. But his style is the same as Flightline's. So you just got to think about it. I have this horse who I think is the best horse in the world. How is he going to beat this horse if they have the same trip? At one point, Life is Good's going to look at Flightline in the eye, and Flightline's going to likely turn him away. And I think a horse could come from out of it to pick up the pieces.
So let's get to a couple fan questions. This is from T. Buki. I hope I'm saying that right. On domestic spending, do you think Chad Brown would bring him back if he wasn't 100% ready?
Yeah, I mean, Chad's one of the greatest trainers in the world. He's got nothing to prove. If he and his owner as well, Seth Klarman, is very conservative. He allows Chad to do whatever he wants to do. A lot of these owners will sometimes, I want to run in this race. I want to bring my friends and family. Seth's not that guy. If domestic spending shows up in here off this long layoff, he's ready to roll. I just hate the draw a little bit.
This is from Casey Crypto. Is Golden Pal vulnerable? Winning 3 straight years at the Breeders' Cup doesn't happen regularly.
Yeah, I mean, I try not to get carried away with what hasn't happened before, because it's never happened until it happens. He's won that many Breeders' Cup races in a row because he's special. And I think there's a chance he'll be special again on Saturday. If anyone beats him, I think it'll be Highfield Princess.
So everyone always obviously wants to know about the long shots. Is there anyone that you recommend? And you also wanted us to talk about Jack Christopher. We talked about Kamari, Aloha, West, and Golden Pal.
Yeah, unfortunately, since we did talk about that, Joy, Jack Christopher didn't get entered. He's had a little bit of a situation with the vets, and so he's not going to run. It would have been a lot of fun to watch him run against Jackie's Warrior, which would just be a tongue tie trying to say Jackie's Warrior, Jack Christopher.
Jack Christopher.
Exactly. I think a little bit. I don't have a lot of long shots that I like, and in the Breeders' Cup, every horse is good, and that's how they've gotten there. But there is a couple of horses that aren't the favorites that I think are interesting, and one of them that I wanted to mention was In Italian. She'll be running an affiliate mare sprint. I think she's 7-2 on the morning line. I think she'll probably go off a little bit higher than that. She's won back-to-back Grade 1 races in wire-to-wire fashion. Her main competition is the European horses. European horses tend to come from out of it. They tend to be a little bit slower from the gate. They come from behind. And I think she could get loose in here on the front end, and you'll get a lot of thrills at least, because she'll be on the front end when they enter the first turn, and she'll likely be on the front end when they turn for home. It's just if she could hold on to it.
Well, thank you so much for all this great information, Jonathon. It's always good to hang with you every couple months. You've been watching the Breeders' Cup preview show with America's Best Racing. Again, I'll tweet out the cheat sheets with lots of other information, a lot of background stuff on the Breeders' Cup this weekend, which is going to be an exciting one with an amazing horse, Flightline, running this weekend that we should all be paying attention to. Jonathan, enjoy Lexington and the races this weekend. Make sure you follow Jonathan on social media at UT Big Hair. Myself, Joy Taylor Talks. This will also live there, so you can rewatch it and get all the great info that Jonathan just shared with us. Before we let everyone go, where can they gamble for if they want to play the games this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, look, you try to find an advanced deposit wagering account, ADW. There's a handful of them. The ones that stick out to me: ExpressBet, NairaBets, Twin Spires, just to name a few, are some of the opportunities that you can sign up for accounts, depending on what state you live in. Most of them are pretty good. Unfortunately, my state of Texas is a little bit difficult, but let's be fair, we're a little bit difficult in a lot of different ways. But you can pop onto one of those to get involved.
Awesome. And also make sure you follow America's Best Racing, ABR Live, and America's Best Racing on Instagram and all of their social media outlets. Good luck this weekend and enjoy the races.
Thanks, Joy. See you in a couple months.
See you soon.